Today's talk is going to be more of how can this AI thing, or everyone is talking about AI, can change the financial sector in Ethiopia and how it's impacting it. So yeah, my talk will be more often on the actual implementation rather than it's not going to be literature reviews or but I might not be interact with you with actual live coding because since you guys know either any of the AI terms and concepts, they might not be friendly to live program or develop with, right? So since everyone is talking about AI, that's like how can we use AI to utilize and to empower the financial sector here in Ethiopia? Um, so the first thing, AI started being a very much a good topic is back in days. This is now we are in the fourth industrial revolution when data and this is the coil or like the the previous ages almost we get rid of it and we're doing the fourth industrial revolution and the AI and big data started like early 20s when if you guys know the image data set, like the large image recognition database with more than 40 million annotated images. It was designed for the use of object recognition, mostly for research and development. So after this, the world turning point happened in an era of AI. So many people are still issued and discussed in the field of artificial intelligence are the same ones that were brought up 50 years ago, right? So in a certain cases, close to 90 years, let's say if you look into the story of automation, there has been always been a concern it would lead to a job loss because machines will take over jobs and people would be jobless and stuff like that, right? Let's say just before the Great Depression of 1930s, there was this article by New York Times published. It says how much of the machine makes idle hands, right? Then, but actually, it's not doing like that, right? Let's say I don't know if you guys are practicing or trying to implement any of AI algorithms, but until today, some of us are still struggling with classifying dog and cats. So AI in finance. So in the 1950s, there wasn't a lot of excitement about the potential of automation. Probably not exactly AI, but people used to think, automating tools that could help, the financial accountants and bank clerks by helping them, to calculate in the process in a faster way, in an efficient way. So usually the 1960s, they start on into machine learning. So the Louis Bachelor, he was the one who actually implemented advanced mathematics. His thesis was recognized with being, the first paper to explore the use of mathematics as a method to evaluate stocks. Now everyone's talking about a stock, as you guys know. I don't know, especially in West areas, like people say, oh, I became rich because I invested in stock. So this is stock, evaluation, and this is stock prediction was, back in this the Louis Bachelor and anyway. So so the development of AI will be divided into stages. So the first one is, as you guys see, it's on which all industries will attempt to use the technology. Let's say for the first stage, you can think of security and protection services will use this facial recognition technology. So the banking sector will use AI in risk control and et cetera, et cetera. So these are the single technologies and solutions serving existing industries. But I think of the second stage will be like artificial intelligence, or the new concept will be core of the business. Then everything will be built on a layer of that one. So, for example, for the second stage, the bank will use AI as its core technology, and can be completely driven by AI in terms of investment services, credits, and so bank clerks or the bank people would only be required to small adjustment in the features, right? As in the small adjustment, then the AI or the model will be learning itself and building entirely new kind of customer services, entirely new type, new sort of advisory things, and etc. etc. So I assume that this second phase will be entirely, it will shape humanity or this is the society, because if you think of the WWW era, like back in the internet was emerging, so the first stage was the traditional bookstore. Maybe they used to make a website for their bookstore, and they say like, "Oh, now we are online bookstores," but that was not the case. The case was if you take Amazon, it's a completely boom. Then you can get everything that you want. Even though we all know that Amazon collects is selling right now in their stock. So at Choppa, what we're working on. So we basically, beside being a financial technology company, we, as Mike mentioned, we do data engineering and research as well. So we try to implement AI in three fields. The first one is in personal finance. The second one is in consumer finance, and the third one is in corporate finance. So basically, personal finance is a term that covers like borrowing and finance. So corporate finance could be think of as an IPOs, funding sources, capital structure, and investment decisions. So in personal finances, this is a little bit old data, but I don't know, the numbers might be a little bit bigger now. So according to the World Bank Group, nationally, nearly 22% of the Ethiopians, they have an account at formal bank institutions. Like, I don't know, I'm seeing a lot of people are asking to open a bank account on the street, so this number could be bigger. So from this, population, almost 48% of people actually save the money because either they don't have enough money to deposit, or they don't know what the saving means to them, right? So not 44% of the people borrow money either directly from the financial institutions or indirectly from other people. There's 44% including the high level corporates. So while the financial institutions are only set this amount of 40% for savings and 7% for borrowing. So it's borrowing, which is also lending and a collateral based the sector, the economic sector. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to build an end-to-end investment advisory platform, so a chatbot. So let's say if you've been advised to invest in some imported goods, I don't know, back in days, if you guys used to think if you thought of what do you call it, when the COVID started, right? When the COVID started, I remember in Ethiopia, everybody was talking about importing medical goods for the society. But what if you've been advised to do that? So um, sort of another involving field is bionic advisory, right? Which combines machine calculations and human insight to provide much more efficient options. So still, they can be, the machine can tell you there are some things high, and high demand, but actually there might not be because there are a lot of supply in that. So if you go find a comparable demand and supply, then it might be machines might not be accurate, but human interactions are very much needed. So we know that collaboration is key. So it's not enough to look at machine as necessary. So on another end, it's not even a inseparable, right? To know what a role the machines can say, oh, this one and that one. So this is what we're trying to build on Telegram. So we're trying to build financial advisory on Telegram. We're trying to train them in different human, even Amharic way, the way we used to chat with the people. We chat with people if you want to say Danana, you guys can say DEH and stuff like that, right? So we're trying to build this type of things and to make it a financial advisory chatbots build on on the leverage of other frameworks. So the other concept is AI in consumer finance. So one of the most significant business case of AI is in fraud detection. So since we're doing payment gateway and other stuff, we're trying to build in-house fraud monitoring, the fraud detection system. So we can know that AI can analyze the single out of regulations and patterns that would be otherwise go unnoticed by humans, suspicious transactions. So consider the look of this, the banks and services, financial services. So they always want to provide secure accounts. That's why one of the reason is still the Ethiopian bank sector is not doing digital banking, they're really afraid of security, like either it could be fraud or cyber security attack. So as you guys know, every business aims to reduce the risk conditions that surround it, right? So this is true for financial institutions as well. So loan bank gives you is someone's money, though they don't want to play with another people's money. So which is why you also get paid. Then that person actually comes to the bank and asks for like, what is my interest? So that's why they charge you interest. So if that money is going, unnoticeably, like, just vanished, that is not healthy for the banks. So banks will be, very much going to, bankrupt. So we're trying to trigger point to say we're trying to build a synthetic data using, generative models. Then these models are like you're using suspicious transaction activities. It can be, using some account number to withdraw money at someone Bahardar and another one in Gambella. Then in less than 30 minutes, so like what kind of, a private jet will take this person to, from Bahardar to Gambella to have this sort of transaction. So assuming still we're facing in a digital world, like whenever you guys are trying to change your IP or use a VPN, still I know the platforms that you use ask you like actually that you're right, but financially this thing cannot be tolerated. So if you're trying to attempt, withdraw some amount of money, and for unusual cause, I don't know, let's say if you guys are like usually chill at someone's pad, but like if you spend money like unnecessarily high amount of money at some other places, like which the algorithm like this, the method, the model has never seen before, like that might be red flag. So this is for regular and unregular transactions, there might be we're trying to set like a points, right? So whenever there is a red flag for regular transactions, which means like when the transaction is valid, and if the model is predicting like as a fraud, then a human being will correct that. Then that model will learn from the experience and or even more make more robust and sophisticated decisions about that specific case. So back in days, from 2016, study shows that fraud and security saw like major factors which affect the implementation of digital banking in Ethiopia. Even right now, when we're trying to build something, like everyone is asking us like, oh, how about the security? How about the fraud? How about the cyber issues? So this is a model, the typical, the model we're trying to build for a fraud thing. So whenever we talk about GAN, like this generative models, we know exactly generative models can be a good solution if we are a lack of data. As you guys know, the fake being created like an exactly synthetic face of voice of people. It can learn from one example and make something similar, right? That's just what we call them, generative adversarial networks. So having very much small historical transaction data, then we're trying to build something similar using generative models. Then we're trying very much simple random photos classifier. So we have a credit data transaction, like we trying to say 280,000 of them. Then we have 29 features. Then we're trying to divide them as testing and training set 80-20. Then we label them like we have a feature. Then we have a label them. Then we try to know very much in random force classifier. So this is how you understand it from the data, because it's very much highly unbalanced. As you guys know, if whenever you work with real world problems, recently the published paper that from our lab is stating that to treat this imbalanced things, it's very much highly as tricky, because if you mention like we have 280,000 data, then like almost we have a lot of them as a valid or like the fraud is probably less than 1,000, right? So we have to do that, like this whole tricks of understanding of to treat this class imbalance problem and stuff like that. So as you guys see from the confusion matrix, the model was accurately labeled around 56,861 records as a valid, which is they are valid, and it misses still 80 is a 78 records as fraudulent, right? Then however it's incorrectly identified valid transaction as fraudulent transactions 3 times incorrectly, and identify the fraudulent transactions as a valid transaction 20 times. So from this confusion matrix, So this can be corrected like using human interaction until the point of this, the data scarcity is, fixed. So why we're trying to work on another problem is, as I mentioned earlier, it's AI in corporate finance. So we I personally used to work with this big company to which predicts stocks for people like to actually invest on them or to take away the money or like to sell them, right? So even in Ethiopia, there is recently there is this directive is talking about stocks and everything about that. So ahead of the time, we're trying to execute an initial IPO thing. The IPO is undertaken by privately funded companies, decided to be listed on the stock exchanges, right? So if the stock exchange market directive is applied in Ethiopia, we have a lot of interesting companies in Ethiopia which knit from fund from the capital markets and stuff like that, right? So one of the sector that we work on is this one, like when is a good time for the companies to go live, to go to IPO and stuff like that. The other one is getting a credit rating. This is like for learning to get a loan from banks, the financial institutions, microfinance and stuff like etc etc. So this is a good credit rating will often lead to better borrowing conditions when someone has money. Let's say if you guys think of let's say at Kaltara in Piazza. So if there are we have a lot of I would say brilliant minded to traders or like merchants, but they might not have enough money, but they know what the market needs. They know what to supply them, right? So after all, these people can be treated as can get money and provide back to the community that they can pay you back, but on how patterns, right? Like we're trying to see a couple of other features, from record to the way they take us and everything, like understand the personal behavior analysis, then to make them valid and invalid for for borrowing. So yeah, let's take another example of even giving loans from the banks, right? Today, the banks they use it very much traditional scoring and collateral methods to decide who is eligible to for a loan and who is not. So it's very much hard to group people into haves and have-nots because of the model. Because someone cannot understand you, you can tell them, oh, sorry, you cannot get a loan from my bank because my model says so, right? This might be a little bit uncomfortable, like for a society like ours. So and instead of this, we're trying to make them like unbiased, and we're trying to tell like, oh, these features are important. So we're trying to extract like features, and instead of making the models the decision makers. So another ongoing project we're doing is so this we're trying to do it with a private bank in Ethiopia with more than 25,000 workers. We trying to we did some classes to clean out the data. So then after that we applied different methods like very much simple logistic regression and decision tree and random forest again to actually know which features are important in order to give loans for for people. So instead of focusing on the collateral, like if you go in there to take 10 million Ethiopian birr, then like instead of checking like if you have a car, like what else can be highly correlated, right? This is a feature matrix we got out from the model that from the feature that we build. So it's clearly showing that like the correlations of features are like with the target, right? So the target, the actual loan amount is highly it's relative, like, but as you guys can see from the confusion matrix, like no correlations are extremely high, except loan amount in the applicant income can be it can be explained because with income okay you can ask well except like unless in other ways if you're trying to have with money, get the money with confidence. So the other problem we're trying to solve is with the trading and an anomaly detection for corporates and other markets. So this is like predicting the future accurately. So we're trying to do um, sort of anomaly detections or extreme events, right? So when is it going to be some specific market or goods? Because since we payment gateway companies, we work with merchants, right? So this merchants get money, we get money. This merchants are successful, we'll be successful. If they lose, we lose, right? So we're trying to predict this extreme events and anomalies in time series model. So So to tell merchants is to tell people like, oh, this could be you have to invest in this one, you don't have to invest in this one, or there will be a holiday in this season. They like, you have to you have to accommodate, you have to try to accommodate a couple of more things. Let's say there is a call by the Prime Minister of Ethiopia for 1 million diasporas to be home, or I'm not sure like if I know this term correctly, but there will be high anomalies in that period, like in Ethiopian Christmas period. So like what will be in high interest in that, like he can provide these people and he can empower them, right? So for the anomaly detections, we have also evaluated three models. Then they're very much the famous this LSTM models from deep learning. Then we're trying to mix it, like we're trying to hybrid it, like with a gamble Markov model, like from well, let's say as a for a personal AI or as a personal advisor. So well, challenge we're having right now is the first one is the data scarcity. So having a widespread data set is one of common problem we're trying to solve. Why you're trying to solve a problem in Ethiopia, especially machine learning problems, right? So either we don't have a data or the data is not clean at all. The other one is in this computing power. So the computing power is like let's say the computation power is very much necessary to process massive volumes of data. Let's say if you have data, then you're trying to build the AI system. So if you're trying to utilize the techniques like deep learning and machine learning, even the one I was talking about, like any type of reinforcement learning, they are unlikely to use small amount of power. So they, unlike any other computing algorithm, so they have like very much power consuming and charging the power. So obtaining and funding that level of computing power can be very much challenging for businesses, especially on all contexts, like the for startups, right? So the other one is the trust defect. So trust is how specific and set of inputs can devise a solution for different kind of problems is difficult to understand for a layman. So even people used to think AI is such robotic thing, but when you tell them, oh, my model said this, my model said that, like who's your model? Is that your role model? Probably they might get confused, right? The other one is like it's a biasing. This is we're trying to address it like researchers as well. So I think I remember there was one article I read about it on Forbes India. They said inherent problem with AI system is that they only as good as or as bad as is the data they've been trained on. So bad data is often less with racial gender and communal and ethnic biases. Other ones like if you give them very much good data, they will be like efficient and good on predicting something. So inappropriately algorithms are used to determine who's called for a job interview. So like if you train on only white people, on only people from Addis Ababa, then like they might not gonna let have this type of interviews from the rural area. So yeah, so how are we working on the on the future? Then like as you guys probably know, we work on the millennials or like the Generation Z's quickly become the bank, like as these people are quickly become the bankers addressable consumer group in the world. So we started targeting this millennials, and I started from the name Choppa. I think hopefully you guys know the name what Choppa means. But if you guys don't know, you can ask me later, and I'll tell you. Then besides being in financial services, we're also doing like highly invested in artificial intelligence in research and development. We're also engaging in different projects with banks as well. So the younger consumer prefer the digital banking channels, right? Now we with this generation, we're highly interested in having a digital bank in while like our my grandfather and my grandmother, they prefer to go to banks because I think they don't trust the cell phone they have it in hand. So yeah, these projects are and ideas can become true through partnerships. So like if you guys have any sort of ideas and everything, yeah, we're welcome to have it. So what do we do next year, right? Like about Choppa. So what we do is like we have customers with merchants. Then customers can have different way of to pay the merchants. Then the problem is like we have very much fragmented payment option. So the merchant, they don't have one channel to accept payments from different ways of payments. So what we're trying to build is like we're trying to build a highway for payment. So anyone can use that highway and will be sort of giving like it doesn't matter if you have a bus, if you have Vits, or like if you have a very much small automobile, we're trying to provide, a payment channel, a payments highway for customers to pay the merchants. So these are the very much, the social code projects that we built. Probably you guys know My God or iZone. So far using these two projects, like we raised more than 4 million US dollars for the national causes, both for the great Renaissance, I think, Great Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, and the other ones like for National Disaster Risk Management Commission. So after we build this in the projects, we use NLP, the text analysis, and computational linguistics, and also biometrics to systematically identify and extract, quantify, and study the effective states about like good, what people are talking about good, and like to provide back this information for the responsible body to fix it, to improve it, and to listen to the people. The other one is like, we're trying to predict the probability of non-performing loans, which is like the default loans, and individuals which are like, beneficiary loans for the bank. So we're trying to address these problems and get back to them as well. So in this short report, also we're trying to have report about good, then we're trying to analyze our product and what does it look like, and so like so on. So thank you so much, guys. If you have any questions, just let me know.